Hey, it's Rachel Martin with FindingJoy.net, and I'm super excited to welcome to a new year, your best year. I'm really blessed to be a part of it because we all have such amazing intentions when we start a new year, don't we? I think that's why New Year's resolutions are such a big thing. But I also think that despite our best intentions, that sometimes we can get in these places where we either kind of grow weary of the new resolutions, or we get stuck in the resolutions, or we just get busy. And part of my story here today is to be an encourager to you so that you can follow through with your resolution. But I don't want you to think of it as a resolution, because sometimes resolute means like you're determined, your mindset is one way. But part of being resolute with a resolution is having the mindset and adopting the idea that no matter what, every single day, you're going to work to make a change, and you're going to work to make tomorrow look different than today. What happened last year doesn't have to define what happens this year. So that's the first thing I want you to just kind of inhale and exhale and breathe and understand that you have the ability each day to start over with a clean slate. Oftentimes we carry with us the baggage of what happened in the past, or what happened yesterday, or what happened even an hour ago, and we allow it to define our potential for tomorrow. So thinking about this, we all want to start well, right? It's 2019, we want to start well, we want this to be the year of change. But how many times do you go on Facebook at the end of a year, and we all want to start well? Do you read, "I can't wait for this year to be over. This year was so hard. This year, let's just get rid of it and let's start the next year." So I want us to not look at only starting well, but I want us also to finish well. And finishing well is a different mindset than starting well. And if you're a runner, you know that sometimes when you're running a marathon, think about this. In the beginning, the first couple miles, you're like, yeah, I got it. And then as you go on and on and on, there are so many things that kind of make us want to stop. Our legs hurt, we can't breathe, we're tired, we're hungry, whatever it may be. Those are almost excuses. And as runners, we have to, or as individuals, moms looking and women looking to change our lives, we have to be willing to look at the excuses in the start. You can't get to the end without looking at what are the potential excuses that might stop me from getting to the end. So the goal of this session is to really work on, how do I finish well? How do I start well? There's many ways to start. We all start with the good intentions, but how do I finish well? And part of finishing well is understanding that in the months to come, there will be excuses and there will be things that come up that can kind of derail us. So that's what we're going to talk about. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the writer behind FindingJoy.net, and I wrote a book recently called The Brave Art of Motherhood. And the word for me this year, and for so many, is the word brave. Because to me, brave isn't only for those giant moments in life. Brave is for those moments when, you don't know if you can get through today, or you don't know what to do next, but you're going to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Well, in this book, I talk a lot about there's a cycle that we all kind of get stuck in. And sometimes it's good, and sometimes we just need to be aware of it. And the cycle goes like this. Our reality, we have these agreements that we make about ourselves. For instance, one of the agreements might be, I will take care of myself when the kids get older, or when the money issues get fixed, then I can start pursuing the things that I love. Well, all of these are agreements that we've made. And these agreements we create in our life. If you think of it like a circle, we create kind of excuses that keep us bound to that agreement. So today we're going to be talking about, I'm going to go over 3 really powerful excuses in my own life that kind of kept me stuck. And what happens is the excuse then leads to what our reality is. Our reality is, so for myself, I lived in really severe financial issues for many, many, many years. And I kept telling myself that my agreement was, if the money gets fixed, then I can start writing and can start speaking. Well, then I made all these excuses. I kept myself busy, which is one of the excuses we're going to talk about. And then because I was busy in spaces that I shouldn't have been busy in, all of a sudden, my reality kept dictating, like, I wasn't putting time and energy into fixing things or making my life rightly ordered. I was just busy doing other things. So my reality became there's still severe financial issues and all of that. So, and then that leads to kind of like tightening the agreement. So I want you to think about agreements that you've made with yourself about this year specifically. What are some things that you have subconsciously decided? Maybe it is like, I'll get in shape when something happens, kind of the if then. That's an excuse that we all have. We all kind of get stuck in that mindset, and it's an easy one to get stuck into. So I want you to look at what excuses, what agreements that you have maybe about your life. And then right next we're going to do is we're going to break down the excuses that you give yourself that kind of keep you stuck. All right, so let's start talking about these different types of excuses. So I broke down the excuses that we give ourselves to the baggage that we carry, agendas, and kind of denials. The first one we're going to talk about is an agenda excuse. So an agenda is kind of something like, if you think of you're going into a meeting, it seems like it's really good. It seems like, okay, here's the agenda. This is what we're going to talk about. Well, we as women and busy women and moms can make an agenda, an agreement with ourselves that dictates the excuse that we give. And we're going to talk about the excuse of busy. Now, first of all, I'm never, ever, ever going to discount that we're not busy, because I'm a mom of 7 and I understand busy. My oldest, she's 22 now, and my youngest is 9. And there was a season in my life when they were all little and it was crazy busy. And that was also the season of my life with the finances so crazy and difficult. But in that space of not feeling like I had enough time, I also relied on the excuse of busy. Now, I'm going to tell you a story about busy that I wrote about. But here's the idea: is my grandpa Whit, he was a farmer in southern Minnesota. And when I was a really little girl, we used to go to visit him. And oftentimes, I rarely saw my grandpa. My grandpa was out in the field right then. He was working on the harvest. And in that time, I never questioned his love for me, because he knew what he needed to do. He knew he needed to be in the field. He knew he needed to be harvesting. He didn't use busy as an excuse. He didn't go into the barn and shine up his tractors or figure out how to rearrange everything in the workshop. He was really focused on what he needed to do. In that instance, his busy was very rightly ordered. Same with my grandma. During that time, she wasn't doing like all the crazy house maintenance. She was providing food. She was taking care of the men that were doing the harvest or the people in the field at that moment. So their busy was clearly rightly ordered. Did they in that moment plan trips to Disney World or play the latest game with us? No. But as a child, I never, ever remember doubting that my grandpa loved me. It was just the time of the harvest. Well, here's where busy can creep into our own lives. And if I give my own life as an example, during those times, I would get so overwhelmed with things that I needed to do that I would find places to be busy that looked really, really good on the outside. Like I would go down into my laundry room and I would be busy all day sorting the games, going through the socks, finding missing pieces, cleaning out closets, cleaning out cupboard drawers. I would be so busy kind of organizing, and it would preoccupy my time from what I really needed to be doing. And that's what the excuse of busy is. It's not that it's bad to be busy. In fact, work is a really good thing. But it's when we take our time and we're busy in places that aren't the spaces that we need to be busy in. I always joke that if you're alphabetizing your cereal or scrubbing out your silverware drawer, you might really need to examine, is this the best place I should use my time right now? Because busy, when you use that as an excuse, you can feel at the end of the day that you are extremely productive. But if this is your best year and every single month is a way that's going to propel you forward, being busy in the wrong spaces can actually remove time to be busy in the spaces that can change your life. So if you think about your list, your to-do list of things that you have and whatever resolution you put on there or whatever you're going to do to make your year the best year, I want you to think about what is the thing on that list that should go to the top every single day, and figure out what is the most urgent. What is the thing? In some ways, it often is something that you really don't even want to do. Like for me in the financial issues is I really dreaded calling people and fixing my financial situation. And what happened was, if I had to call a creditor, because back then I had to deal with them, I didn't like it. I had this emotional baggage that would be attached to it. So not only did I deal with an agenda, I also had this emotional baggage of shame and all these things. But when I became busy in spaces that weren't fixing the finances and not calling, I wasn't really fixing the situation. It wasn't until I decided to do like Eleanor Roosevelt says, do one thing every day that scares you, and flip the paradigm on my busy, that I began to take control of my busy. So if I say, I'm too busy to do that right now, or you say, I'm too busy to do that right now, I'm just way too busy, I want you to look at what you're saying you're too busy with. If it's busy doing things that can change your life, then maybe you are too busy. But if it's busy doing things that could probably wait till tomorrow, or that really won't change the outcome, then you need to reevaluate. Is busy an excuse that you're giving yourself to stop you from moving forward? Because busy is one of those excuses, my friends, that it just feels so good. It feels good to have the house clean. But if you have the house clean, but you ignored calling a creditor or calling a friend or working out or whatever it is on your list, and you have this other thing that you're using to make yourself feel better, you're really not moving forward. You're just kind of like putting, like trying to eat healthy, but putting frosting on something and making it look good. Here's the deal. You have to look at your busy. You have to examine it, and you have to be kind of hard on yourself. And sometimes deciding, you know what, I'm going to do the hard thing first. And then, the other things on the list, you'll get to them. Like laundry, you'll get to it. You get to organizing the silverware drawer, whatever it is. Just rightly order your busy. And trust me, breaking that excuse can change things for tomorrow. All right, the second excuse we're going to talk about is the idea of scarcity. And it goes into not only time, but it's also with money. And so often I found that women, we don't like to talk about money. In fact, it's one of those things that we kind of push off saying, that's not my job. That's not my role. That's not my space. Now, role is another excuse that I talk about in the book, but we're not going to delve into it deeply. Instead, we're going to really work on this idea of scarcity specifically with money. Because I know there's so many of you that want to live your best life, but you give yourself the idea and the reason that if you had enough money, then you could do it. And trust me, I understand money. I was on the Today Show talking about how I pulled myself up from a place of poverty to a place where I don't have to worry and my bills are paid and I can provide for my kids and there's opportunity. And the reason I was willing to go on to national television and talk about money so freely and admit where I was because I believe so many of us use shame and use the emotional bond of shame or fear or whatever it is as a way to, it's kind of a place that keeps us stuck. So first of all, I really want you to know that there is no shame in this. There's no shame. If you let shame carry you through, you can't change. It's so hard. So I want you to cut out the idea of shame, but I want you to focus on this idea of changing your mindset from scarcity to abundance. And I want you to be able to do it with this place of freedom and understanding that what we think is incredibly powerful. For instance, have you ever heard the phrase, what do you do to keep the wolf away from your door with regards to money? Well, the idea of the wolf coming to the door means that there's always going to be something that could take away your money. Well, then when you live in that posture, you're actually living out a place of fear. You're living out of a place of lack. You're waiting for it to be taken away. Now, what happens if you decide to start living out of the paradigm of abundance and opportunity? There are many, many people in history that have changed this paradigm. If you know the comedian Jim Carrey, one of the things that he's known for is having gone up to the Hollywood sign, and I believe he wrote himself a check for $1 million that he pre-wrote before he actually made $1 million, because he wanted to believe that there would be a day where he would make that money. Well, actually, what he's doing is he's visualizing a future that really didn't match with his present reality. Now, money is very challenging in that way. I get it. I get that place of not having enough to make ends meet, and it's so scary. You feel almost foolish when you decide to think about a future that's different. But when you allow that foolish place to kind of creep into your mindset, you're really shutting down the idea of opportunity. So if you go back to thinking about being busy, I also use the excuse of scarcity to kind of keep me in that busy place. So if I have the excuse of scarcity, I'm not even looking at opportunities that might be there, because a lot of times we want the fix to happen immediately, and the hard fix of clawing out or digging out or getting over the mountain or around it or digging through it, that just seems daunting, because the truth is oftentimes we can't see the other side as we're working. And in the beginning, the momentum takes so much effort. It's like trying to roll a giant snowball or a rock and getting it moving, and it takes so much effort. And a lot of that effort for you and you're building your best life is deciding that even when you feel like nothing is changing, or you feel like, wow, I saved $10 today, that $10 changes your tomorrow, because you either save $10 or you don't. And $10 saved day after day or week after week, it adds up. We just have to be willing to understand that the small gains actually lead to big gains. But to work on this excuse of scarcity and money, it means that you need to start looking at your own agreements and your own relationship with money. Do you think that there's never enough of it? Is it something that scares you? Do you feel like it's something we'll never change with it? And that means being honest with ourselves. It means looking at our credit. It means looking at how much we spend. It might mean looking at our house thinking, you know what, I could get rid of this, or I could sell this, or I could donate something. Because when you donate something, you're also creating space for yourself to not be busy managing it. So when you look at money in your life, money is one of those things that can break resolutions, because it's very easy to decide that because we don't have a certain amount at this moment, we'll get started later. Getting started later, it just means, again, time is going to pass. You have 52 weeks. You get to decide every single week, do I do something to change my relationship with money and to fix my financial situation and break the idea of scarcity? Or do I sit in the same spot out of fear, out of shame, out of not knowing what to do, out of worry? So those are the things that you can do to help break the thing with money. I want you to look at your own paradigm. I want you to write down the different spaces of your relationship with money. Write down the phrases, the agreements that you've made about money. And then I want you to think of different ways that you can break the excuses. And maybe it's just in talking with somebody else. Maybe it's finding an accountability partner. Maybe it's deciding, you know what, I go to Starbucks every day. I'm going to break it down to once a week and taking the remaining money and using it for something else. And maybe it's deciding I'm worth investing in myself right now, and so that my tomorrow can be different. All right, we're going to talk about the third excuse right now, and this is the one that gets the most people talking. So the third excuse is the excuse of gratitude. As you know from the beginning, I'm the writer of the site Finding Joy, so people always think it's a little bit funny that I talk about gratitude in this way. But in the process of writing my book, I discovered that I used gratitude as an excuse. Now, first of all, gratitude, I want to just set the foundation. Gratitude is an unbelievably important thing. It's important that we have it and that we teach our kids it. And one of the stories of gratitude and finding joy for me was when my youngest son, he has celiac disease. When he was a baby, he was in the hospital, and there was a time where I was just overwhelmed. They didn't know what was happening with him. He was hooked up to all these monitors and everything. And I remember being in the hospital late at night, just crying and not knowing what was going on, and then hearing kind of the blip, blip, blip of the heart rate monitor going, and thinking in that moment that I just started listing everything that I was grateful for, that he had a normal heart rate, because I knew there were lots of kids in the hospital that didn't in that moment. And I just went through all of those things. Well, that's like rightly ordered gratitude. That's the gratitude of asking our kids at the end of the day, what's 3 awesome things that happened today? Now, here's where gratitude can be an excuse that kind of cements an agreement. If we go back to my own story with financial issues, there was a time where, and I'm going to be just completely real with you and honest with you, that there was a morning that I woke up and I went outside in my house in Minnesota probably 12 years ago, and I looked out the front window and our truck was missing. And it took me a while to figure out what had happened, but this truck had been repossessed. And it was in the middle of the night, so it had snowed, and it was just this really eerie thing to wake up in the morning and not see it. It was completely gone. Well, instead of looking at that place as something that should be changed and should be a place where I should take action of, instead, I would tell my friends, I would minimize it, because again, I had the kind of shame of the position that I was in. I would tell my friends, I'm so thankful that I could go to the truck and get everything out of the truck that I needed. And I would spin a situation that I should have actively been involved in. Instead of looking at it like, you know what, this should never happen in my life, that this is never going to happen again, I looked at this situation and thought, what's good in this situation? And it's not that looking for something good and something hard is bad. It's more of the idea that I was looking for good in something where I needed to be looking for action instead. And instead of looking for good and what was tolerable in it, I needed to actually start getting busy. So Tony Robbins has this quote that he says that you get what you tolerate. And in my own life, and you need to look at your own life too, if you tolerate things for so long, your kind of the largeness of what you tolerate, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So there might be a place in your life where you're like, I would never tolerate that. But as situations kind of grow and you exist in your agreements and your reality and the excuses, all of a sudden, if you're not careful, you can find yourself tolerating something that 5 years previous, you'd be like, I would never tolerate that. So with me, with this gratitude aspect, I allowed myself to tolerate things, financial situations, not looking at the bills, not taking control of it. It was really me deciding I am not going to let role dictate. I'm going to take control of the finances and I'm going to look at them. It was really for me looking at the spaces that I was being grateful for and realizing I need to actually start working and start doing something. Now, this is one of those excuses that a lot of people, they've never looked at gratitude in that way. If I look back at my situation when that truck was taken from me, there was a moment where I was devastated. I'm like, why, God, why me? I'm a good person. And he didn't want me to be. I wasn't in that moment. If I'm looking at my own accountability, in that moment, it shouldn't have been why me. It should be, what can I do? So I want you to look at your list and look at the places on your gratitude list. And I want you to be really, really open to the idea that there might be something on this list that is a place that you need to dig deep. You need to make a call. You need to decide to get up early. You need to just decide, you know what, I'm being grateful for something where I actually should be taking action in this space. Don't allow gratitude for something that you should be changing to stop you from moving. So often, and it's just that fine line of we need to be grateful, we need to be appreciative and find joy in our life, but we also need to be aware and diligent. To me, that's having our best year ever. It's being aware of our own mindset and our own excuses and what we tell ourselves that can stop us from moving forward. So look at your gratitude list. Look at it just with an open mind and assess, am I grateful for things that I need to be taking charge of? And if so, those are the places that I challenge you to change. All right, so we went through 3 excuses that can keep you stuck. I wrote about, I believe, 9 excuses, and one of the excuses we didn't even cover is the excuse of guilt. Don't let guilt keep you stuck. Don't let it stop you from moving forward. And that's in the baggage section. I really want you to not allow whatever happened last year, whatever happened, like we talked about in the beginning, stop you from making changes till tomorrow. If you want this to be your best year, you need to be relentless and ferocious and on fire determined. You have it in you. You have that potential within you. That's the idea of being brave. It's looking at yourself with fresh eyes, the way your friends would see you as somebody you would never tell your friends, don't do it this year, just wait. You would tell them, I believe in you. Well, I'm telling you, from me to you, I believe in you and your potential and capability to make this year awesome. You need to look at it as 52 weeks of deciding to do one thing every single day. One thing, one thing, one thing. After a week, you've done 7 things. After 2 weeks, you've done 14 things. Imagine that. Imagine it also in this year. What if you decide that you're not going to do anything? That you're just going to wait? That you're just going to allow the excuses, you're going to wait till the money gets fixed, you're kind of grateful for spaces you should change, you're not even going to worry about, you're kind of just going to be busy with other stuff. Then you have 52 weeks that you have to play catch up. We all have a finite amount of time. You have it, I have it. We don't know. I believe I'm going to get to live to be 80, but you know what? I don't even know. My goal and your goal is to capture the time that you have today. Doesn't mean that you have to be busy all day. It means take your time, be busy in the spaces that you need to be busy in. Be fearless. Don't allow the baggage to kind of hold you down. Don't allow guilt or shame or all of that emotional bonds, those baggage excuses that hold you down. Don't allow agendas that keep you held back either. And don't allow denials, places that you really don't want to look at, hold you back. Trust me. When you change and break the excuse, you will change your reality. When you make a new agreement, when you make the agreement that I am worth fighting for my heart today, no longer do those excuses have kind of the bond, that hook in you anymore. When you make that mindset choice of every single day doing one thing, you break the excuses, and when you break the excuses with a stronger agreement, your reality will change. And after 52 weeks of breaking excuses, I can guarantee you that this will be your best year ever.